Okay, should we start?
Yeah.
Hello. Um, okay, a few announcements before we start as well. If you haven't done that command already to get the most recent version of the engine to fix a bunch of bugs that we're going to be fixing throughout the week, you should do that and get it. Another announcement, we're going to be putting food at the top of the lecture hall at the end, so if you're sitting there, you're going to be kicked out at some point if you don't want to move now. Other than that, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about version control and Git and working in a team, since I presume a lot of you are working in teams. So just to get an idea of what people are already doing, how many people here have used Git before? Okay, how many people are using Git with their Battlecode code? Just a few of you. Are any of you using like Dropbox or like emailing versions of your code to each other? Okay, so hopefully if you are doing that, because I did that my freshman year and I have many regrets, we will learn how to not do that and some other just like terminal stuff. And if you're experienced with Git and everything, this will probably be a boring lecture to you. Just a disclaimer. Okay, so first let's just go to the website and download the scaffold. So specs and software here. So a simple way for people to download the scaffold, and let's say like, okay, so let's say that we downloaded it as a zip, and I put it in my folder over here, and I call it bc18-scaffold. Now, so this is just a folder. It's not in version control or anything fancy. But okay, before we talk more about Git, let's talk about how to use the terminal in general, because this will be important in navigating both Git and just like if you download stuff in the future or like do coding stuff. So the most basic commands you need to know are ls, which is to list a directory, and cd, which is to change directories. And if you type cd without any arguments, that brings you to your home directory. So right now I'm in my home directory. And if you want to like clear your screen, you can do Control-L to clear your screen. So right now I'm going to do ls, and my stuff is in documents, so I'm going to change into documents. And if you type like BA and you press tab, then that will auto-complete your thing. So try to avoid typing a lot of things because you can like limit it. So ls, right now that's the zip I downloaded. I'm going to delete the zip with rm, which stands for remove. So BC, and I'm going to press tab. And since there's two files with scaffold, it's not going to complete it. That'll show me all the options if I keep pressing tab, and I'll delete the zip. So now if I do ls, there's only one folder inside, and that's my scaffold. So I'm going to change into the scaffold, and ls, look, there's all my stuff. And so since I have a Mac, and I think if you have like Linux or something, you'll already have Git installed, and this will show you all the commands that you can do with Git. And since my screen is small, you can't really read it, but that's fine. So ls, and there's my repository. So let's say I downloaded it as a zip, and I'm just like doing everything locally. The only way to really share this with my teammates that I'm working on is to put it in a Dropbox and sync and like rename files a million things, like different vegetables, like broccoli.java or whatever, and then now you'll get confused about everything, so that's why you need version control to keep everything together. Even if you're working by yourself, it's good to see previous versions of code that you've made so that you can revert changes if you have a bug. You can isolate bugs. You can see your commit messages to see what past you is doing to future you. Yeah, so let's make this a Git repository because I don't want it to just be a folder on my computer. So I'm going to go to my profile on GitHub and go to repositories and click new. And I'm going to call it I'm just going to call it BC18 scaffold as well. And this is a description in my Battlecode stuff. And since you don't want your code to be public to other competitors so that they can copy your thing, you should make it private. So be sure to make it private and create repository.
Remember that if you use your MIT email address to sign up with GitHub, then you're offered some free private repositories.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, you can go to that at github.mit.edu. It's a special thing if you have an MIT account. So here I'm going to add this as my remote. So like they gave me the instructions already to initialize a Git repository, so I'm just going to copy this command here and paste it here, enter. Oh wait, first I have to type git init to initialize everything. So now it's an empty Git repository. It's not connected to anything on GitHub. It's just using this version of version control. And then I'm going to copy and paste this here, git remote add origin. And then I'm going to copy this command here and do that. And then it's going to say that it failed to push some refs because right now there's nothing committed to this repository. Okay, so the first git command that we're going to use is, here, let me type. Here, the first one we're going to use is git status. This is basically to show you the status of everything. It's really important. Whenever you're confused about what's going on in your Git repository, you type git status. So git status. All this red means it hasn't been committed. It's not part of the version control. If I push this to my GitHub repository, none of this would be added. So you can see untracked files. Your version control doesn't know that these files exist yet. So for example, I can do git add license, and then if I do git status, you can see that the license is being staged. It's being staged to commit. So you can do git add read, and then press tab for completion, git status. You can see that now 2 things are done. And if I want to add everything in the repository, I can just do git add period. And period means everything in your repository. So git status, everything is green, and which means it's all being staged for commit. So you have to do git add to add files to staging in preparation for committing. So git commit, and now it's going to prompt me to enter a message. So this is basically to inform anyone who looks at my Git repository what these changes are, why I added these files, why I modified those files. So I'm going to just say starting, or I'm going to say initial Battlecode scaffold, because I did not do anything to this. And this is using a text editor called Vim. So if you get confused about how to type in things, why if I'm over here and I start typing, why I pressed S and it deleted something, that's because Vim is just weird. So some commands you can learn are I to insert, and then you have to press escape, W for write, Q for quit, and then now everything's committed. So git status. It says my working tree is clean because I added all those commits and they're all being tracked by my version history. So now I'm going to push this, so git push. Hold on, so git status, git add, git commit is to commit your changes, and then over here it says the first time you push it has to be like this to set your origin. So I'm going to copy and paste that command here, and it's going to tell me that it's tracking everything and it's all set up. So if I go to the GitHub GUI on the website and I refresh, I should be able to see all my changes here. So initial Battlecode scaffold. Cool. So I'm going to make another tab here. I'm going to make this bigger so you can actually see it. So I'm going to pretend that I'm another person. So I'm going to make a directory called, actually I'm not going to make a directory. So I'm going to pretend that I am my teammate, Bob. So on my team is me and Bob. So Bob is going to do git clone because Bob is cool and knows how to use git already. So he's going to use git clone and paste this URL here, clone with SSH. So if you haven't set up your SSH key yet, you'll probably have HTTPS, which is basically the same thing, except you have to type your username and password sometimes. So I'm going to git clone this into here. ls, oh, sorry, I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to git clone. So if you do Control A, you'll go to the start of your line in the terminal, which is helpful. So git clone. And then if you do Control E, you'll go to the end of the line in your terminal. So git clone, I'm going to clone it into a folder called Bob, because Bob is my teammate. Control L to clear the screen. ls cd into Bob. Now I'm in Bob's directory. And you can see that Bob can see all the changes that I pushed in my initial directory. So now Bob is all set up. Good for Bob. I'm going to go to my first window again. So this is me, my code that I'm writing. And for simplicity, I'm going to just make a directory called makedir. That stands for make directory. I'm going to make a directory called story because instead of writing my Battlecode bot, I'm just going to write a story together with Bob. So ls. So I'm going to use Vim, but this could apply to any text editor. So Vim, I'm just going to make a file called story.txt. And I'm going to make it really boring. I'm just going to call it 1, 2, 3, 4 because it's counting down to something interesting. So that's my file. And if I do cat, I can see the contents of my file. That's my file. So I'm going to, if I change into my previous directory, git status, you can see that there's something new to be tracked, and I'm going to git add the entire directory to be tracked. So git status again, story/story.txt. And from now on, instead of typing git status, I have an alias called GS, which stands for git status. And since I type it so much, it helps me get through these things faster, and I'll show you guys how to do that at the end. So git status, and I have that story there. And I'm going to git commit. So the flow is always git status, git add, git commit, git push. So git status, git add, I already did that. Now git commit, and I'm going to say start the story. Now everything's committed. So if I don't push the changes, then all these changes will be committed in my local repository, and Bob won't be able to see anything. So another command you can know is git log. So this is to see your commit history. So I'm going to do git log, and there I can see my commit history there. In Bob's folder, git log, Bob still has the old version because Bob hasn't pulled anything yet. So if Bob types git pull, Bob won't see anything because I haven't pushed anything yet to the repository. But here, now if I want to do git push, you can see on the GUI, on the website, start the story, my commit's visible. Now Bob does git pull again. Bob has my changes. Bob has story.txt. Cool. So now I'm going to just make a bunch of different commits on my story. So cd story ls, and I'm going to edit the story. I'm going to add decimals in between things because for fun. So 5.5, etc. I'm going to write, and then I'll quit. So git status shows me that story has been modified, which is indeed what I did. I modified the story. Now I'll do git diff. So I think git diff is very important. A lot of people will just do git add period and commit everything right away. Or like I think git -a commit. I think this will like just add and commit all your changes without you like actually looking at anything. I think that's a terrible idea. Sometimes you'll write like debugging statements. Sometimes you'll like just like add a bunch of random things that you didn't want to commit. Like maybe you wrote your private key in a file somewhere and you just git added before like actually checking that you added exactly the files that you wanted to add. So I'm going to do a git diff of story.txt, and that'll show me that I added those decimals, and that's exactly what I wanted. And if I just do git diff, it'll show me the diff of all the files there. So in this flow, I'm going to add git diff here. You should always do this before you add things. So these are the changes I wanted to story.txt. Now I'm going to do git status, git add, story.txt, git status. Yep, that's everything that I want to commit. So I'm going to git commit, add decimals to my stories, to my story. Git commit. So if you do git commit -m, that will prevent you from having to go into that interactive editor mode thing. So git commit. That's an easier way to do it. So now that you've committed, git log. Now you have add decimals to my story. Now let's say I changed my mind and I want to do ls, go to my story. I want to delete like 3.5 or something and 4.5. So git status, git add story.txt, git commit remove 3.5 and 4.5. Now, let's say Bob is working concurrently with me across the field because I live in Simmons and he doesn't want to come to Simmons because it's too far from everything. Bob is going to edit the story himself without telling me anything. So so cd into story, ls, I'm going to edit story again, and Bob is also going to add decimals, so like 1.3, 2.3. Bob will add the changes, git add story.txt, git commit, add some x.3 decimals to this. And so I have a different version of git log. So if you can see, git log here is kind of hard to like navigate because it's so long. So git hist will show you your history, especially if this is bigger, in a nice format over here. So now I'm going to git status. Oh, since I committed the change, now Bob is going to push the changes so that I can see them. So git push. Okay, now I'm going to go back to mine. So this is my original one. So ls story.txt git status, nothing to be changed. So here it says your branch is ahead of master by 2 commits, which means my changes haven't been pushed to the remote GitHub repository yet. So like this is like the like master version. This is like it's like the center of all your attention. Okay, that didn't really make sense. Okay, so I'm gonna try to git push my changes here, and it's gonna tell me some errors. Updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally, and that is the work that Bob did. So since I don't have that, first I have to git pull, as it says here. So if you're confused, oftentimes you can just read these things that are labeled as hints to tell you what to do. So git pull. Now I'll be prompted to merge our 2 things together. So if you don't use version control and you use something like Dropbox or emailing your files to each other, merging conflicts in your code can be really hard, especially if someone changes the code a lot, which is why it's important to use Git with your Battlecode bot and software engineering projects in general, and not just like no version control. So here it says conflict. Merge conflict in story/story.txt. So Git is really smart, and oftentimes it will fix these conflicts by itself, but sometimes it requires some human input into what you want the result of the conflict to actually be. So let's check out what these conflicts are. So first I'll do git status, because if I want to see anything about the status of my repository, I'll do that. And it'll tell me that both me and Bob modified story.txt. So I'm going to look at these changes. And look, Git very obviously labeled for me what was changed and what was not. So this like really long number here, this is a commit hash. So this just stands for, so a commit is every time you like commit your code and make a substantial change, right? So this commit hash just refers to like a certain thing in your tree of commits. And then head refers to your local head. So like what is at the tip of your master. So as you can see, these are my changes and these are Bob's changes, and this is the hash of Bob's commit. So now I have to just manually fix all these things with like lots of arrows and equal signs into what I want it to be. So in Vim, I'm just going to type dd to delete a line, so dd. And I don't like Bob changes, so I'm just going to overwrite those completely. So sorry, Bob. Then I'll save the file, git status, and then git add story.txt, git status, and then git. So now that here it says all conflicts fixed, but you are still merging. Use git commit to conclude merge. So I need to conclude the merge by typing git commit and merge branch master. I think that's a sufficient commit message, so I'm going to agree with this. :W for write, Q for quit. So now git status. Your branch is ahead of master by 3 commits, which means I need to push to master before anyone else on my team can see the code. So I'm going to do git status again. Yeah, that's just telling me the thing. Whenever I don't know what to do, I just type git status and then git push to push my changes to master. And then Bob decides to pull as well. So now we are all on the same page. We have the same thing. And here you can see a handy-dandy summary of what happened to your story. So 3 lines were added, 2 lines were deleted. Cool. So now, what do you do if like you and your teammate are working on the same things at the same times? You're always pushing, you're always pulling. You don't want to keep making these merge conflicts. It's just like really annoying, right? So now we're going to introduce the concept of branches. So if you look back, okay. So a branch is exactly what you think it is. So if you think of your commit history as like a tree of the history of your code, then if both of you are developing serially on one thing, like always fixing your conflicts, merging, just like on the same branch, then you'll see a line of your commits. Now, if you want a branch, then you can kind of like deviate from the main, from master for a while. So master is like the central part of your code. So if you deviate from master for a while, you can work on your own branch isolated. You can push and pull changes on that branch without having to interact with your teammates' code at all. So I'm going to start a branch here. So git status. I'm on master right now, on branch master. Clear the screen with Control L. So git branch. Right now it shows me my only branch is master. So I'm going to do git branch Gina. And then git branch. It'll show me that I have a new branch. So to go to that branch, I need to do git checkout Gina. And so we can see some more commands that we learned are git branch, make a new branch, git checkout go to a different branch. So before we go on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about git checkout. Git checkout just like puts you at a certain stage in your history. So if I do git hist, or git hist, which is the same thing, you can see all these commit hashes there, which refer to a specific instance in time of your commit history. So let's say I want to see what happened at this commit here, because I did this like 3 days ago and I forgot what I did when I added decimals to my story. So I'm going to copy and paste that. So git checkout, and I'm going to paste that commit hash there. Now I'm in detached head state. So when you're in detached head state, so anytime you hear detached head, it's kind of like worrisome. So just make sure you like don't commit anything in this stage. It'll just really mess up your Git history. Just make sure you're not in detached head state when you're doing anything. This is purely for looking around. So git status, and it'll even warn me here, head detached over here. So ls cd story.txt, vim story.txt, and you can see like this is something that I made before I deleted 3.5 and 4.5 and whatever. So this is really good if you make like a change in your code and then you like make a ton of changes on top of it, but you want to see what happened back then. So yeah, git checkout will put you at a certain stage in your commit history. Now git branch, head detached. So now I want to go back to the branch I was at. So git checkout Gina and git branch, and now everything's normal again. I'm not in detached head state. Another thing you can do with looking at your commit history, so git hist will give you this, or git hist. So if I want to see the difference between these two commits, so A35 and EF8E whatever, I can copy and paste this, so git diff. So earlier we used diff to see the difference between what you were committing and what you were, and your like previous code, so git diff. I'll paste this and paste this. And now we can see that between those two commits, I added 3.5 and 4.5. And you can even do this with you can do this with like commits that are not just next to each other. So if I want to do git diff, this one here, merge branch master, and the original one, I can see all the changes that happened during that time. Well, that's in reverse order, but yeah, you can just switch the commit hashes. Okay, cool. So back to my original thing about branches. So git branch. I'm on branch Gina, and I'm going to develop a bit here. So I'm just going to do some random things like vim chapter1.txt. This is the first chapter. What a cool story. Wow. So git status, git diff. So git diff won't show anything if you add in new files, only if you modify files. So git add chapter1.txt, git commit. I'm going to use my shortcuts. Start chapter 1. So I actually have, okay, I'll talk about this. Start chapter. Cool. ls chapter 1. Now I'm going to just so I continue my story. I add this. I'm just filling up some stuff now. Continue chapter 1. Now Bob's going to work on his own branch here. So now I'm in Bob's story. So git status, ls, vim. He's assigned to work on chapter 2, or like maybe the pathfinding code or whatever. Vim chapter2.txt. This is the second chapter. Awesome. Git add, git commit. This is start the second chapter. So this would be git commit -m, which is the same thing. I accidentally committed to master. So I am going to do something that you should do with caution whenever you do reset head. So this will put me to one commit before head, which is the top of the branch. So this isn't super important. I'm just going to do this for a sec. Okay. So now this is uncommitted again. I'm going to git branch to Bob. So git checkout Bob. And if I could do git branch, I can see that there's Bob right there. Git status. Okay, now I'm going to recommit this. Start chapter 2. Status. Okay, git. Now I'm going to type git push. And since I'm making a new branch, git push won't work automatically, so I have to do git push origin, what I want the new branch to be called, and I'm going to call it Bob here. So now you can see that there's a new branch called Bob. And over here, I'm going to do, so git status, everything's good. I'm on branch Gina, and I'm going to do git push origin Gina. So now we have 2 branches, and I'll show you what this looks like in the GitHub GUI over here. So I'm going to refresh the page, and now you can see that there's 3 branches here: Master, Bob, and Gina. And you can see that Gina's 2 commits ahead of Master, Bob is 1 commit ahead of Master. And if you click around, you can do a lot of cool things with Git, like compare to see the difference between the current one and the previous one. But either way, there's 2 branches here. And something you can do is you can create a pull request, write about why your code should be committed or whatever. And then, so let's say start chapter 1. The story needs to start somewhere. And that's my reasoning for why it should be pull requested. So someone else can come in, look at this pull request and say, okay, yeah. They'll look at the file change, okay, yeah, this looks good to me, and they'll merge the pull request. So cool, delete the branch, and now you can see that my code is on master here. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to git pull. And you can see that now I have Bob's branch on my version as well, and I also have the master branch, so I'm just pulling everything from master, and if I do git branch, it won't show Bob's branch, but since I know that it's tracking Bob now, I can do git checkout Bob, and branch Bob set up to track remote branch Bob from origin, which means I'm following the same branch that Bob has on his local version. So git status, git branch. I'm going to go to master, and I'm going to, it says I'm behind by 3 commits, so I'm going to pull to have the most recent version. And cool. And so now I'm on here, and I noticed that, so now I can delete my branch, git branch -d Gina, and I'll be fine. But notice that if I try to delete Bob's branch, it's going to warn me that it hasn't been merged yet. So I can't delete Bob's branch without any warning. Oh, git checkout Bob. Okay, so now I'm on master, and I just want to merge Bob's branch from my terminal. So I'm going to do git merge Bob. And this is the commit merge branch Bob, WQ for write quit, and now git pull, or git status, branch is ahead again of master, so git push. And we'll see that, that everything's on master now. If you look at the commit history here, you can see, well, it's just me doing everything, but yeah, you can see merging branches, etc. And this is especially helpful when your code base gets big. So learn the whole flow of creating branches and pushing to those branches and merging. Yeah. So that's the gist of how to use GitHub for a team project. I'm going to talk about some other things, like how I customize my terminal. Everyone does it in a different way. Mine's rather simple. I use iTerm, which honestly, since I'm not utilizing all of its features, is basically the same as the regular Mac terminal. Okay, so the first thing is you might notice that I have some colors on this thing that tells me what my name is and what my folder is. And so if I look at this file called bash profile, this file is run every single time that you open your terminal for the first time. So I think this doesn't apply to Windows computers, but I think it applies to any Unix system. So yeah, none of this stuff is private, I think. Yeah, it's not. So the thing that colors my terminal is something called easy prompt. So if you just want, if you are just tired of having your text here be the same color as this prompt, you can go to easyprompt.net, which is really simple, and just generate something really simple to make it look slightly better. Or you can, I know a lot of people have other custom terminal things, but this is just a very simple way to make it look slightly nicer. So, and another thing that I do that I talked about earlier is I use git aliases. So if you go back to my bash profile, if you go back to my bash profile, you can see I aliased gs as git status, ga as git add, And since I use Git so much for anything related to coding, I type those a lot, and having these aliases helps me reduce the time that I spend trying to like deal with my version control. So for example, here I would just do git status there, then I would make a new file, chapter3.txt, git add, period, git commit, and I don't even have to type -m or anything, chapter3, and I don't even have to type git push. Oh, if you do Control W, that'll like delete the last word behind you, so I'll just do like gpush, and like some stuff happened here, but it's okay, we don't need to worry about that. But yeah, git hist is also a very helpful thing. If you're using like a fresh version of Git on your computer and you have like Git installed and you need to do something special to make hist work, so what I'll do is just Google like git hist. And gitimmersion.com is how I learned Git, and it tells me some cool aliases I can use to, okay, this is really slow. It's okay, we can just not do that. You can Google it yourself. Let's see what else I have here. Oh yeah, so I aliased Chrome as open-a this because that's like, it's basically just opening your application. So if I have an HTML file, so let's say like hello.html, hello world. So ls, I can see my HTML file. I can type Chrome hello.html, and it'll open it in Chrome for me. So like you can alias your applications like this so that you can open them more easily instead of having to like search through your Finder and whatever. Yeah, so that's Chrome, and I also have one for Sublime. So if I do like sub, it'll open up Sublime, and there's example funcs player. Awesome, cool. Don't save. Let's see. I think that might be all I have to say about using the terminal and Git. Yeah. Do you have anything to say, Max?
I found it very helpful. I thought there were a lot of really cool hotkeys in there. What was the hotkey you used to go between tabs on this terminal here?
Oh, so if you looked really closely, this here says Command 1, and it differs for every terminal. So I just type Command 1 to go to the first tab, Command 2 to go to the second tab. And you can also do Command left, right to go. So if I had a lot of tabs here, I can do like Command left, Command right to like navigate between tabs. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. What if we open up the floor to questions from the audience?
Yeah, sure. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So what happens if you try to push something and it says that password authentication is not available?
And it says what, sorry?
The password authentication is not available.
Let's repeat the question for people who didn't hear it.
The question was, what happens if you try to push changes and it says the password authentication is not available for Git? So I'm not completely sure, but what I would guess is that for that particular instance, you can't use username and password to authenticate to Git, but you have to use something called an SSH key, which is...
And you can Google how to set up SSH keys
Yeah.
with Git, and there are some good guides online.
Yeah, and that's actually very useful because then you don't have to be typing your password all the time.
You might have noticed that the way that Gina was using Git is she was doing commits very often. And I know you might have thought, oh, well, this is just an example. But I think when she really codes, she commits often.
Yeah, so,
And so that's why, trying to avoid having to type in things. You saw that she's going to some effort to try to save just a few characters of typing because she's entering those commands in so often. It's like a way of thinking and a way of working to, instead of like on MS Word, you get in the habit of hitting Control S every 11 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But here it's you're getting in the habit of pushing your work to the GitHub.
Yeah, to
repo.
GitHub. Yeah, that's very true. As we were like creating everything for the game in the past 2 weeks or more, we were using GitHub a lot to communicate with each other on the team, as in like the devs. And so we have our own GitHub repository in case any of you guys want to check it out. It's battlecode/battlecode-2018.
And I think probably the internet in this particular room is suffering from a lot of users.
Yes, that's true. So you can see Battlecode Engine, Battlecode Manager. If you guys ever have bugs and you want to fix them yourself, just submit a pull request here, and we'll merge it if it fixes that bug.
Isn't that exciting? You could be immortalized in the Git history of our repository.
You can contribute to the open source community. Everything's just full of opportunities. Okay, so so this is my version, and if you look at our history, it's like kind of wild because like there's so many of us working at the same time. You can see all these branches happening, and if we didn't use branches and merging and code reviews and etc., our life would be a pain. So version control is important. You guys should use version control. Yeah.
I think that was a really good summary, even if it was fast. So I might watch the video afterward, which is going to be posted probably on YouTube.
Yeah.
To go over it and to see it once more.
Yeah.
I had a request from the Twitch chat, which is moving on to another topic. So
Okay.
we should open it up, we'll guess one more time for any more questions about Git, and then maybe we'll move on to the other topic just briefly.
Any other questions?
Seems like not. Somebody was asking, if you don't mind, if we could show off the client. Is that working well on your computer?
I do have the client installed on my computer. I did not do much with it yet. I followed the setup things and I could get some stuff running, so I can show as far as like I know about how everything is put together. How does that sound?
If you haven't gotten Battlecode set up yet and you're using Windows 10 Home, there's a new video that I put out on Discord. There's a link to it on the Discord, or you can find it on M4X Mann on YouTube. And that video goes over how to install Battlecode. It was my first time installing it, and I thought it took about 10 minutes. It wasn't too bad. So you can give that a go if you haven't installed Battlecode yet. You know, the sprint tournament's probably coming up pretty soon, so it's not a bad idea to get started as soon as possible.
Oh yeah, we're going to release the tournament schedule soon. So how tournaments work is that there's a sprint tournament, and that's going to be next Wednesday. And we're going to close submissions on Tuesday, so hopefully we'll have scrimmages up by then. But the sprint tournament is nothing really. It's just for fun. You get to see your bots against other people's bots. You get to see other people's strategies. You get to see a bunch of new maps that the devs will make for the sprint tournament. And we're going to stream it live on Twitch and provide sarcastic commentary on how all of your bots are doing during the tournament.
That's right. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It won't be a live event, so don't come here or anything during that time. We'll probably just meet at somebody's apartment or somewhere, and then we'll just be hanging out. So, you know, get a bag of chips, you know, turn on the live stream. You can program in the background and just hang out with us. It'll be a good time. I can guarantee it.
Yep, and the rest of the tournament schedule will release on the website in a bit.
So with that, if we have nothing else to say, then I'd say we just hang out till the food arrives.
Okay, sounds good.
So
we'll let you know when the food arrives.
All right.
Thank you.